Tonight we will examine concepts that may challenge your perception of the world around you. Strange creatures, chilling tales, and the occasional conspiracy. Here on our show, we will attempt to provide you with paranormal insight. Hello and welcome. This is part 2 of Team SCARI. Last time on the show, so I get walked through by myself, which was freaking weird to start with. I don't like it from the jump. It is got me on the edge right away because there is something being held back.
While we were outside, that was the first initial scope of the house because we wanted to be there with you for this.
Right.
And that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to be there for that. I wanted to ask questions, but they made them do it with you first and then us. It was like it happened twice basically, which was completely unnecessary.
I think everyone was very much aware of feeling how off the energy was and how it was a strong sense of almost deception.
Yes, that is the word.
I asked the client if they would like me to bubble and clear and protect them because knowing we were going to do an investigation, and this was the first time in my career of doing this that the client said no. Everything in this investigation I felt was made to divide us and catch us off guard. The client will not talk directly to me. The client will only talk to Alex and Paige. The client is trying to be somewhat chivalrous to Alex and Paige at this point. They want nothing to do with this client,
right? And
are literally almost under Mama Wolf's wings, if you will.
And now the continuation. Okay, so let's briefly talk about what do you want to cover first?
Well, I think we, just in following up, the entire time we're on so far, everything is deception and everything is about keeping us divided. So obviously, in part 1, I left off with the nature spirit that asked to baby koala me and basically stay with me the entire rest of the time that I was on the property. So I feel that there were a few things that we missed in bringing up the first time. And one of those was when we were standing outside doing the initial tethering and clearing as a team, because there was a camera crew there with us. They were doing the shot behind me so as not to get my face. And because there was so much wind, my hair was a hot mess because it was a very windy day. So basically, I needed to brush my hair. So I pulled out the brush. I put my head in the van in order to brush it. And out of nowhere, the client walks over to me and says, "I'll brush your hair."
Oh, yeah.
And this is after this already really weird confrontational, a whole beginning that we had in the driveway of him basically telling me, "Get out my way."
Right.
So that was really strange. And, for the average person, if you don't understand why this is important and why I'm deciding to rethrow this back in, not only is hair an extension of your nervous system, but the reason I don't cut my hair in particular, or very rarely when I do, is because I physically get sick. I don't let people touch my head. It messes with my aura. It messes with my energy. And, in essence, that whole situation was weird because I was so stunned by some random male wanting to come over and brush my hair, let alone him because of our prior interaction.
Right. The talk about inappropriate. And I remember that happening. You kind of practically threw him off.
Yeah, I mean, he got a good like stroke or two in, and then I was like,
and didn't he take the brush right out of your hand and just start
did.
going in?
Yeah, he completely grabbed the brush from my hand and just started brushing, which A, you don't do with a female's hair ever. B, with that much hairspray that I had in my hair at the time.
Ouch. Yeah.
It hurt. So the reason I'm bringing that up is here I've already had 2 weird negative encounters with this person, and now this is the 3rd. So taking it back, we're out in the middle of the cow pasture, and I've got the girls under each wing. I basically stop this nature spirit from, coming forth and attacking him. He basically lies, and then finally cops to, killing all of these squirrels.
Right. I love nature, but I kill a lot of it.
Yeah.
I love to kill nature. Maybe that's where he was going with it.
He basically told me beforehand that he loves animals and was telling me how much he loves them. And I really like animals. Animals are something that I grew up around. My mom was a vet. I've been surrounded by them my whole life. So I've always, wanted to be around them, and I love them and have a dear place for them. And he told me exactly what I wanted to hear. And then later I learned that he basically just hunts for fun.
Yeah, and then Tim, you ended up finding out that the whole reason he was killing all of these squirrels was supposedly because the property owner had told him to, because the squirrels were burrowing, causing peril to the cows.
Yeah.
And also because they were chewing on the electrical wires.
I don't remember the electrical coming into it, but there was something to that effect, yeah. Because if they chewed an electrical, they get fried.
Yeah, he brought that up to me, which I felt was kind of weird, but we let it go.
So this is outside. When do you guys start heading back in?
Basically at that point.
Okay.
Because at that point I was like, there's no need to go further. I've now got a nature spirit baby koalaing me on one side. I've got 2 girls under each wing.
It's pitch black. There's no point to stay out there. We can't see anything.
And the reason you go out there is because of this phantom cow that supposedly showed up right behind them when they were going through on a walk one day.
Which was the whole premise as to why we came out there to begin with.
Well, that was just one of the things. There was the stuff in the house, and then there was the cow outside. That was the only reason to be outside.
Yes.
And he mentioned a few times about possible UFO sightings that were happening outside as well.
Well, he pulled me aside to say that specifically to me.
Well, and the interesting part with that is...
He didn't mention it to me.
Nor obviously to me because I was quarantined by myself, but I had told you all when it was still daylight and I was outside by myself, I said, it's really weird. There's this dark rectangle over this portion of the property. And I said, if I didn't know better, I would say maybe it's like a huge UFO. I don't see a UFO. I don't sense that, but it's like this dome of like rectangular darkness over the property. So I mentioned this to Alex, and of course, later on, he pulls Alex aside when she, is randomly being pulled aside by him constantly and says, oh, real quick, JJ mentioned there might be a UFO or like there's this weird rectangle over the property.
No, I don't even think you mentioned that to him. I think
I mentioned it to you.
Yeah, you mentioned it to me. You said that to me before, and then he came up and said, yeah, there's like this football field sized, whatever it was. The UFO, something like that is what.
Now, did he say the UFO visited or that it was currently
no, it was just
there?
over.
No, he created it, and he ended up telling Alex about this by placing a rune stone on 2 sides of the property about a football field length apart.
Okay, I remember something about the stones, yeah.
So this is pretty late into the game that he's telling her this. I've been seeing this in broad daylight all day. It's beautiful, sunny, everywhere is nice, gorgeous blue sky. Obviously, I'm outside by myself, so that's all I'm looking at. And yet, over the property directly is this rectangular football field of dark. Like, the sky was visibly darker over. And it was constant. It never shifted. It never moved. And, there were no trees or anything to even create that effect. So I find it very interesting that later in the day, he basically tells Alex, oh, I made that happen. which was a tip-off. But I don't know any of this until later.
That goes back to your point that he was trying to divide us and keep information segregated between each individual person on the team.
And even furthermore than that he was doing something to the property.
Yeah.
Which we're getting into right about now.
Yeah. So you make your way back inside and post-meal break. Is that where we sit down on the couch?
So at this point, we came in from outside and I was in go mode. So I didn't want to stop for a break or anything.
Go mode.
Yeah.
We came inside and we did the inside for a little bit.
We did, yes. I came in immediately, first thing, took my shoes off.
Is this your walkthrough on the hot spots? Okay.
Well, actually, no, back up.
Okay.
So we're outside, we're in the middle of a cow pasture. I say, we're done here. We walk back. We then go around the house.
Oh, that's right. You're on the outside of the house. Okay.
So I walk back towards the front of the house where basically I was just hanging out blind most of the day. And in this weird kind of corner, like kind of where a front door should be, if you thought about it, on the other side of the garage, there's this corner where it looked like maybe a nice fountain would be.
There's a bunch of flowers, like a big bush, right?
Yeah, it was kind of over by there. And so I look in this corner and I see this humongous being that is basically has a pointed head and is at least 12 feet in the air because it was pretty high ceilings. And I'm on the outside of the house and I see it half in, half out of the house. And mind you, I have not even been in the house at this point, so I have no clue where this even corresponds to in the actual house itself.
Okay.
And this being is basically bound by ropes to the house.
You're seeing ropes.
I am seeing this 12-foot high being bound to the house with like these huge ropes. And I'm confused because this is definitely a dark entity. Like, immediately I go into protection mode. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm confused because it's not aggravated at all. It's not hissing or trying to get away from me like normally things that are dark are. It is docile. And so immediately I shine a little light at it. Internal light, not
spiritual,
external light. Yeah. And it starts almost begging me to be free. Which is confusing at this point because I haven't even been in the house at this point, and I'm very confused. Why is a dark entity bound to the house and why is it begging me to be free? And basically I just said, I'm going to come back and deal with this later. Walked around the rest of the house. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot there. There were a few spots that kind of weirded me out.
Yeah.
Like I could tell there had been some past stuff that, some residual energy that had been there, but nothing active at the time.
Right. Basically
get back up to the front door and, take my shoes off. Everyone wants to take a break at this point. I'm like, I'm in go mode now. And I basically tell the camera crew, your job is to follow me. I'm not slowing down for you. Which, in this situation we were in, I might have been nicer, but I was in a mood at that point.
And rightfully so, I might add.
Yeah. So immediately I just trudged all the way to the back of the house.
Well, did you hit the hot spots on the way? I thought you ping-ponged into the rooms on the way back to the back of the house, or did you zip all the way back?
I went all the way to the back to where the laundry room, almost garage was.
Right.
And I stopped, and everyone's basically behind me at this point. Like, the camera crew, it's their job to follow me at this point. And I'm seeing layers of history. And I end up seeing whoever lived in this place before this house was built. Like, this was settled by other people. Okay. That they had lost a baby. There had been a miscarriage on the floor. And then I had seen basically the grief take over and someone passed away. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this makes a little sense. Maybe there's some grief. Maybe that's why there's this dark entity bound to, quote unquote, the property or the house, because there was an old settlement here. Because the house is fairly new construction. So I'm seeing
easily, yeah.
I'm seeing very old, like 1800s type stuff.
Now, at this point, if I remember correctly, he starts arguing with you about on that point. It's like there was nothing here before this.
Yes. And starts getting very pissy.
Very testy. Bossy.
Yeah. I don't have nice words. I'll refrain from commenting.
Those were about the nicest descriptors we could use.
And so at this point, Sage is backing me up, saying this is the exact same thing that I felt before, and backing me up. And he's arguing with both of us. And I basically just shake my hand at him and said, I'm moving on. I'm done. So at this point, I go into the bedroom. Immediately, I ping on the upper wall. So when you walk in the room, the far left corner, I ping on that, and I'm just calling it out. Like, there's something there, there's something here. And then I immediately go into the bathroom, which was the master bathroom, which apparently you guys had been all over before, but I have no clue about any of that.
Let me touch on that briefly. Sage and I were, with Sage as a psychic lead in that team up, she says, I'm feeling something over here. And we go into the master bathroom. Oh, now I'm feeling something over here. And we go out of the master bathroom, through the master bedroom, into the guest bedroom where the blue monkey was. Is that correct?
Yes. A very current and thing that was happening all the time was it seems like this energy was constantly moving through the house. It definitely did not feel settled. It felt very chaotic, like it didn't want to be there at all. And we even had some moments where, especially with most of our camera crew being males, we had a lot of, when men would enter some of the rooms, the energy would immediately shift outside of the room, which would further correlate to what was actually going on.
It was so strange to have that thing ping pong, though. Just boom, one side of the house, the other side of the house, back and forth.
Usually, if you give it attention, it will make itself known and be pretty happy to stick around and communicate for the most part.
And I think the interesting thing for me is, I'm completely blindfolded, so I know none of this. And
before you jump on to that, what's interesting is that when you and I, Tim, were actually in that room, I remember in that corner that you're saying, I think we both looked up in that corner, if you remember that correctly, before she even went in there, because it was right above where the balcony, like
the slider.
deck. Yeah, it was right up in that corner. Do you remember that?
Is that the monkey room?
No,
Is that
was
the
the
master bedroom.
Master bedroom.
Was,
oh yeah, you kept pointing to it,
mm-hmm.
and the lights kept flickering.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So it was that corner that I was picking up something. Then, so there was a lot of energy that was especially just trying to put itself in corners, stay away. But I remember vividly, even you don't even, that's not one of your main leads, but I mean, it was making itself pretty even known.
Yeah, it was literally bouncing around the house. It was so strange.
So basically, I'm in my mood. I'm moving very quickly. We all laugh because yes, I do have moods. I was a little testy at the time, and I pointed up to that corner, and I saw this thing basically plastered up in the corner, like near the ceiling. It wasn't moving. It wasn't attacking. I just basically pointed it out, moved on to the master bathroom.
And would you say this thing plastered in the corner was another dark entity?
Oh yeah, it definitely was not pretty.
Okay, gotcha.
It wasn't a friendly. We'll put it that way. So I get over to the master bathroom, where basically you walk in and it's a stall shower, then a jacuzzi tub with the vanity, and then at the end is this little walk-in closet.
Yeah, that closet was freaky.
So I walk in immediately. I'm like, there's residual energy here in the bathroom. And then I said, I want to go to the closet. So, and you guys are all, I mean, these are pretty tight spaces and I have like 9 people behind me. So
it was like a party in a very tiny room.
Yes.
It was very crowded.
It definitely was. So I'm trying to move fast enough, but also be cognizant. I have a troop of people behind me. And I walk into this little tiny, it's a walk-in closet, but it's a square. Okay. And it's at the end of the bathroom. And I walk in and immediately I look up and I see the other half of the dark entity that was outside.
The pointy 12-foot tall one.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's half in this walk-in closet and half out. And I look up and I'm like, I've never seen this before. Something that's basically bound in and out like that. And it basically looks at me and starts begging me to release it. And I am confused. Like, your girl is full of nonsense at this point. I'm just like, it's been a long day. I've got dark stuff asking me to free it. This is very confusing. This whole house is confusing. I'm not understanding what's happening. And basically I start to walk out back into the bathroom and a tennis ball just starts rolling on its own through the bathroom floor.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, because everyone stopped because basically I'm the lead. So wherever I went, everyone jumped into the closet and then I start walking through and I'm 2 steps into the bathroom and out of nowhere, this tennis ball just rolls in. So my immediately thought is, oh, there must be someone else in the house or a dog or something that kicked it. And I basically turn around to all of you still in the walk-in closet with big eyes saying there's no one else in the house. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, we're moving on. That was the mood that I was in. I was in total, like, moving on and we're going and we're walking. Time is money. Work with me, people. So I walk out and then I go into the guest room, aka Blue Monkey Room.
To explain that a little bit further, one of the main claims was a blue plush monkey that had a habit of disappearing and reappearing in very hard to reach and odd locations throughout the house. This monkey did not perform on this particular night.
I really liked the monkey. He was like a carnival stuffed animal that you'd get at a carnival. It was kind of cute. I really like monkeys. I didn't get anything negative from that. It was a cute little monkey. It was just a stuffed animal monkey. It's a monkey.
That's the scientist talking, by the way.
Yeah. Total skeptic who loves said monkey.
It's a great monkey.
Well, also, just to let you guys know, we also had the monkey placed during this whole thing inside of a closet in the guest room next to a recording tape.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a voice recorder next to it.
So I walk into this room, and this is the only room in the entire house that I've been in so far that feels nice.
Which was ironic because both when Alex and I went in there, we were getting very off energy. But then again, the energy was just shifting through. And I think a lot of the energy when JJ was going into rooms, I feel like there was a sense of calm because these things were trying to reach out to you for help. So I feel like the energy in some of those rooms were brought down.
And mind you, I know none of this. I don't know what room activities happened. I go into these completely blind. And I asked to be blind. The only thing I knew is there was a blue monkey that moved. But I don't know where said blue monkey is. There's no furniture in this room. And immediately I walk in the room and I'm like, oh, finally, like a room that feels normal.
And we all crack up.
Yeah. And everyone starts laughing and I'm very confused. Like, okay, I just told a great funny. That's awesome. I have no clue why. And so I literally walked around every corner of the room in order to make sure. And I felt nothing. And then I completely ignored the closet, apparently, because, you know, it's just a closed door.
You went right past it. The monkey didn't even register for you.
Yeah.
And we had the door open as well. That's interesting.
It was, the closet meant nothing to me, basically, is the best way to put it. So, you know, I was going where things were focals. So you guys stop me. I'm about to leave the room and go back into the main room. And you guys stop me and you go, are you sure you don't feel anything over here? And I'm looking at you all like, are you doubting me? Like, I've never had this before. And even Tim is looking at me like kind of with this side eye, like, hello. And I'm like, dude, there's nothing here. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And so that's when you guys tell me the monkey's in the closet. And I'm like, well, cool. I don't feel anything bad about the monkey. Like, it's just a monkey. I feel nothing.
Alex was right.
I picked up the monkey later on that night and put him in a little chair, and he was chilling in the chair.
I forgot about that.
Monkey sitting in the chair, having a good time.
Okay, so at this point, I'm basically like, I'm done. I'm done with this room. There's nothing here. I'm not concerned. And that's when we go into the living room, and I walk over towards the kitchen, and I start pointing out, oh, you've had these cabinets open up on their own. This drawer has something in it that means something. This cabinet has opened on its own and bothered you. And then next to the living, and mind you, living room, kitchen, dining room, it's all open concept. So it's one giant open room. So I'm basically standing in the middle of the living room, pointing out these things in the kitchen. The client is completely denying that anything has ever happened that I'm saying. I'm ignoring him.
The other person we had as a camera assistant stopped the client. Well, didn't that happen a couple days ago or something like that? Do you remember that?
I don't remember, because at this time, the client had been so combative with me. Anytime I had walked anywhere and pointed anything out, because I was going pretty fast.
Yeah.
Every time I would say something's there and keep walking, he would immediately start trying to sidebar all of you to tell you how what I was getting wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And stop the team. Now, mind you, we have a video production team as well following us. So they're basically telling him, you need to stop talking because we need to follow her, and we can't keep up with her because you keep stopping everyone to tell how what she's saying isn't true, right, and getting in our way. So at this point, I'm pointing these things out. He starts saying, no, none of that ever happened. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And no, there's nothing in that drawer. Everything's out of the drawer. And at this point, I'm now peeved. I am hangry. I am tired. I'm cold. I want to sit in something other than a car. And I'm annoyed. I'm setting this up for you so that you understand, because I don't normally snap at clients. This is probably the first time ever that Tim has seen this happen.
And it was almost entertaining, because I was starting to get peeved with this guy too.
And basically I whipped around and I said, I'm opening the drawer. And he tries to stand in front of me to block my entrance to the kitchen.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I said, move or I will move you. And I skirt around him and I open up the drawer that he said was empty, by the way. And it was not empty. And basically that's when the assistant starts saying, well, didn't you say the other day that that cabinet opened? And didn't you say the other day that something happened with that drawer? And he gives him this death stare.
Right.
That was,
I was going to say, did you see something in that? Wasn't there like an object or something?
There was something in the drawer that had some tie to something negative, and that's what I was picking up on. But at this point, I was going so fast that I was like, bam, 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 right? So then I move, from the kitchen into the dining nook. And there was this giant thing up on the ceiling.
Right.
Imagine a giant spider / I don't know, what did I say? Giant, like...
You just mentioned spider in your description.
It was like a spider and a grasshopper. Like, you know how grasshoppers have those legs that bend kind of backwards?
Right.
Like that. And it was just poised up there. Okay, large fear of spiders here. But, this is spiritual stuff. So, like, totally different. And again, I'm thinking, why am I not on high alert? Because normally seeing something that dark and that large, I mean, this thing was huge, right? normally my first instinct was everyone back out, kind of like the bomb squad. If you see me running, follow, right? But I wasn't. It was almost like it was docile, which was weird, even though it was kind of in a crouched position, like it could jump and strike. But it was almost like I knew it wouldn't, which was weird because
I remember you stared at that corner for a very long time.
Well, I was highly confused, sir. Let me tell you.
I believe you.
Maybe it was because the client's energy was so negative that even the negative energies looked positive.
Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah, I mean, your girl was done at that point. Like
the spider was, he was just chilling. He was having a great, he looked positive compared to him probably.
And that was the confusing thing in all of this. And this is why this is the case that I've, been waiting to talk about for so long. And it's great being able to talk about it with all of you, even though we've had to do this, multiple times. But what I thought was really interesting is through this process, the minute I came in on go mode, all of a sudden batteries started draining right and left. Now, you guys had some battery drainage before I came in, but it was kind of here and there, and it wasn't as big of a deal.
No, we were able to switch up to our backups and get the others charging. So, yeah, but as soon as, it's like you said, as soon as we got to this point, we had a massive amount of drain.
And the film crew had it too, because they had to start plugging things in, which is why we ended up sitting on the couch having some interview time.
Yeah, with the cameras plugged in, that's right.
Yes, and so we had to basically be stationary because at this point in time, everything had to be plugged in, pretty much. So there's two couches that basically are parallel and we're staring at each other. And as we start to walk over to there, in the middle of the ground in between the couches, you guys find a piece of paper with a rune on it.
It was like it was on like the cabinet kind of area.
She's right. It didn't end up in the middle of the floor until later.
Yeah,
I found it when I was just like looking at the cabinets because I was just placing my camera.
Oh, that's right. When you were plugging everything in and positioning the cameras.
Yeah, I was placing it in like the corner on this counter. It was kind of like where a fireplace would be.
It was next to it, yeah.
And,
it was a bookshelf next to it.
Yes.
That's where it was. It was just kind of there.
Because I remember...
And the house is empty. There's no furniture. There's no, pens, paper. There's none of that. It's basically empty. They're moving out. So it was really weird for this to be there. And it wasn't there earlier.
It wasn't. Because I remember I walked over with you to that spot. And earlier when the camera crew was setting up, we had to take some of the stuff that was on the shelves off to make room for the equipment and the cords. So we did kind of a brief scan of the area, but to find that piece of paper, there was a part of me that was wondering if maybe the client put it there or something at some time. But at the same time, he was also with us during a lot of what was going on.
He also wandered off a good amount, and he was taking people aside.
Especially when I came in. All he wanted to do is separate everyone from me. Yeah. Which I also thought was weird. Because normally when people have me in there, they want to hear everything that I have to say. It was almost like he couldn't wait to negate everything I was saying.
Yeah.
Which was also very odd.
Let's go back to the index card real quick. Now, the funny thing is, on the initial walkthrough with me alone in the house, I remember that piece of paper being there. Isn't that strange? I remember it being in daylight. That's how I remember it, because we investigated it at night.
If you all saw the looks everyone's giving everyone right now.
Looking at each other real strange.
I didn't see it before.
No, because I remember I was helping one of the camera crew set up in that area because we had a camera up in that corner. And I had to help someone climb up on that shelf so they could actually place that camera. And I had to stay there for 20 minutes. Personally, I'm a very observant person. And to my best recollection, there was absolutely no piece of paper there. It was completely empty shelves.
That is super interesting that you and I and Alex have completely different takes on that. You two are of like mind on that it wasn't there.
It definitely wasn't.
It definitely wasn't.
Crazy.
It definitely wasn't.
So strange.
Because I had been sitting, like, that was my little corner by the sliding door.
Because you were spending a lot of time over there.
Yeah, that was where the solo chair was.
Because I was sitting on the couch, I think, with JJ at the time.
Yeah, because I sat down first because I was just done. And I sat down first because I wanted to A, rest, but also B, position myself so that I got the seat that I wanted. Because I wanted to be able to fully view everyone. So I sat at the furthest corner of the couch.
Yeah.
So you guys end up finding this index card and it has this weird writing. And I'm really not baffled or concerned by it at all.
Right. But the client makes a big deal out of it.
Oh, huge.
It looks like Cyrillic writing. It has the backwards N.
And to me, it looked like runestone writing.
It absolutely did look like runestone writing. I remember even seeing a backwards K.
There's a backwards N for sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you ended up looking up later, Tim, and it said...
It started with a K and had a backwards N next to it, and the rest of the word eludes me right now. I actually have a picture of it somewhere.
But you translated it...
I translated it, and it was Russian, like archaic Russian, for waiting or without time or something along those lines.
To wait, I think is what you said.
So at this point, I'm on one end of the couch. A few of you sit down, and the client decides to sit complete opposite of me.
They're exactly opposite of you, yeah.
Yes. And Tim, you start on Papa Bear mode. Like, you start feeling something's up. And you sit immediately next to him so that the girls can spread out over by me and stay kind of away from him. And he takes this. So I want you to imagine, normally when you sit on a couch, right? Like you kind of sit back, you're in kind of a relaxed posture, especially if we're going to have a conversation. He is sitting, knees bent, leaning forward. I love how I'm acting this out and no one can say this. This is amazing. Knees forward, and he's got his hands clasped in the triangle position, which is, if you guys don't know what that is, it's supposed to be like a psychosomatic, I'm the one in power and control. And he's pointing it at me. And he is now, I love good eye contact, okay? Don't get me wrong, because this is partially how I read people, right? I maintain eye contact. It's not rare. This eye contact was weird. It was creepy. It was intense, like almost like he's trying to convince me of something. And he's trying to maintain eye contact, which is also a little bit of a power move, but can also be used, with people who know how to hypnotize and things like that. Your girl don't play that. So he basically starts going into some story about himself.
He started talking about his parents used to...
No, he told that to me privately and told me not to tell anyone.
And then didn't he say that to everybody though?
No, he said it to me. He took me outside and told me that privately.
Oh, and then you kind of told me just a little bit about it.
He didn't tell anybody else. He also specifically not to tell anyone.
He was very quick to, especially after he would tell something to you, he would almost just like try to keep you almost in his personal talking bubble and not let, an opportunity arise where you could go talk to JJ or Tim or myself. And it would just create this weird distance of
divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Okay. I know he mentions some sort of abuse in that conversation, though.
He did.
Okay.
But he didn't say who, where, or when. That's what he told me.
No. He started on the poor me. So much awful has happened in my life. Mm-hmm. And he started in, and I told him, which is weird, because normally, I let people talk. It's part of the clearing process Tim has seen me in this process before. It becomes a little therapy session. It's to help people loosen up whatever it is that they're going to clear.
Right.
And I stop him.
He told me this before, by the way, and I didn't told any of you what he told me yet.
Right. So he starts in a public forum with all of us, all these cameras running, starting this sob story. And I immediately stop him and I said, stop. We're not talking about that. We're not going there. And I remember, Tim, you even looked at me like, huh? Because you know how this normally goes.
This was a nonverbal communication between you two. Nothing out loud was said as far as I recall.
Wait, you're telling me this all happened between he and I and we weren't talking out loud?
He started to say something and then like you picked up on everything he was about to say and then said what you just said out loud. That's how I remember it.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
It's something to see where she just reads another individual and then she says, no.
Stop. And again, I want to talk about this because this is not my normal.
Right. Let me pause briefly because I want corroboration from Sage and Alex about that. Do you guys recall that happening? Because I don't recall the conversation.
I recall from what happened when JJ was talking to him, he would say a bunch of stuff, the client, and JJ would stop him and say, no, not that, the other thing, and stuff like that. Like he was like he was trying to deceive her, lead her in the wrong direction, wasn't listening really.
Maybe that's where I get the idea of abuse because you brought it up, JJ.
Okay, that's right. He was trying to lead us in one direction with the sob story. And I was like, no, we're not talking about that. I want to talk about this.
Right.
And then there were a few things he tried to go into that I told him, I absolutely am not allowing you to talk about that on camera. That's private. That's something you talk about with a therapist, not on camera. Because, remind you, we have a film crew there. This is expected to someday be out for the world to see.
Right.
And I didn't feel, that was appropriate to be talked about for anyone. Also, as a male, there's certain things that I think he would have regretted it later.
Mm.
And then I think the third is, there's a little BS in there.
Okay.
Poor Sage.
I'm just getting hit with the energy that I think whatever you're kind of recalling right now, I just got hit with it.
I'm sorry.
Like a nice slap in the face and got me right in the chest. Yeah, just to second that, personally, when I was on the couch next to JJ, I just remember more than anything, the energy in the room was just so tense. And, JJ has a very soothing, bubbly, but protective energy about her. But the energy that was coming from his, direction of the room, since they were sitting directly opposite of each other, was just night and day difference. It was truly night and day difference. And I personally didn't recall every little thing that he said because my own meter of this is kind of not what I want to be paying attention to was kind of going off. So I decided to stay focused on JJ and where she was trying to go with the lead.
Gotcha. Okay.
Also, I want to just mention that he kept trying to stare me in the eye, and I hated it. I told Sage in between, I was like, help me. I don't want to look at him. He keeps trying to stare at me.
Yes.
Everybody noticed, and it was terrible, and I didn't want to look at him. And, I'm all for eye contact. I think it's respectful, especially when someone's talking. But
it wasn't casual eye contact.
I did not want to look the client in the eyes. And it's not like he was, ugly. He wasn't ugly, but, ew. I don't need that much staring. It was like he was, I don't know, it was like it was a TV show or something.
Again, the eye contact was not normal. And, you know, I don't know, Tim, you'll be gracious enough to find something super creeptastic that's close enough to put on this video.
Yeah, I'll dig through the footage, yeah.
Yeah, but it was... The eye contact was meant to be controlling and intimidating. It was not meant to be soothing and I want to talk with you and have a relationship with you that most people do when they're looking at each other in the eye. I'm looking at you right now. It's not creepy. Now, let me look at you like this.
Yeah, she puts the dragon
eyes on. Now it's intimidating and antagonistic and controlling.
Well, I think what's also kind of interesting is I think he was very choosy about who he was going to look at which person a certain way. With me, he avoided any and all eye contact. He would try to purposely avoid me unless Alex was around. He would kind of give Alex the lovey-dovey eyes, and then the look towards you, JJ, was... at least the couple times that I personally saw him throw looks at you was very intimidating. And Tim, I'm not sure about the looks, but it wasn't a constant intimidation look. I feel like he really gave most of that to you.
It was aggressive.
Yeah. And especially to be able to see that when the lights are out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was...
Hold on. I just lost power.
Awesome.
It's weird that it turns off right when we're...
It just overheated, I think.
We had a power failure, but that's fine. My stuff works.
Hey.
So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because with everyone else, there were different looks. And there's this exchange between he and I that was very aggressive, very intimidating, and very weird. And none of you have ever seen me in that capacity before. So for all of you... you're kind of looking at me being like, what's going on? So he and I banter back and forth. I keep kind of shutting him down on certain things.
Right.
And then my face goes beet red.
Right.
And my chest.
And you were hot too. We did the temperature thing.
Yes. And that's when I had you do it. You had the laser pointer thermometer. And I had you go at ambient temperature. And I had you go... like on the floor, in the ceiling, and then to a few other people. And and everyone else, like the air was, I think, 67. Normal people, I think, were like in this
78, like 80. It wasn't like a thermometer, so it's not like to check temperatures, but it's just like the temperature that, it's a laser.
Of whatever it's pointing at.
Whatever it's pointing at.
And it got to my face, and it was over 100.
Yeah. I can testify that is a real thing.
Yes. Well, then all of a sudden the client says his face is hot.
No way. No, that's a lie.
He said that he was having warm face as well. And that's when he took his layer off.
Okay, you're right. At one point he takes his shirt off. Mm-hmm. But you will notice once that shirt comes off, he had two shirts on, undershirt and a button down. And once he takes that button down off, his demeanor shifts. I mean, the paradigm shift gets darker quick.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing with JJ up to this point. But then, he shifts it into dark mode real quick.
And the gloves are off.
Right.
And so at this point, I say, I want to do a spirit box section in the master bedroom.
I vividly remember this part.
Right.
So at this point, for whatever reason, he keeps Alex and the other person out. And it's Sage, Tim, and myself, and one member of the film crew.
Yes.
In the master bedroom. And for whatever reason, he keeps everyone else out.
I thought he was in there for that.
No.
Was there when I came back?
No.
Not for that part. I wasn't there.
No. He kept you out. So, Sage, you went in first and set up the spirit box on the cot. So, before I even got in there, I used the restroom. You and Tim were already in there with one person of the film crew who was setting up the cameras.
Right.
I walk in and he's in the other room, and I said, I need it to be quiet, and he closed the door on us. So we're in the master bedroom with the door closed.
Okay.
The spirit box is on.
Right.
The lights start flickering on the wall above the spirit box, and as soon as I walk in and take 2 steps towards it, it says, White Witch.
Yeah, among a flurry of other things. Wasn't there a growl that started the whole thing off?
Yes. And then it said, White Witch. And then I said, yes, I am a White Witch. And then it said my husband's name, and it said your name.
Yeah.
And just to know, one of our rules on this process was that we did not use our names to each other while we were here for protection
Purposes.
So there is no reason as to why your husband's name should have came up or anything. It's not like we were saying it, unless you would have said it somewhere, but I highly doubt you would say that.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the standing rules in S.C.A.R.I is we do not use our names to introduce ourselves to entities. It gives them power over us. As far as there are a lot of circles of thought and practice that, say that's the case. So too, if we have an entity's name, that gives us power over them. So the standing rule is no names.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I've just walked into the room. The door has now been closed on me. I know you and Sage are in there. I know the film person. Immediately, we hear a growl, and then it says White Witch, and then it says my husband's name, your name, and then a third name. And immediately I start screaming at it because the way it said my husband's name and your name and the third name was very aggressive.
Yeah.
And I basically told it, you do not talk about any of them. You speak to me. And then it said, the lovely spirit box said the book. And so Sage starts asking it questions. What about the book? And it kind of goes quiet for a minute. And then I asked, are you bound to this property because of the book? And it said, in blood.
Right. I
So
remember that.
Sage is now frozen because of the weird energy happening. It gets very cold in the room. And the thing in the corner starts moving around. And I basically shut down the spirit box at this point and say, turn it off, we're done. Because it was very aggressive, but also weird. Because it was almost like it was giving information, but like in an aggressive way.
Maybe
Or my thought yet.
Okay.
Because I'm like,
I might go back a little bit, but I do. It's really strange because my memory on the whole session is kind of blurry. And I think it's because all I really do remember is one, it was always just like aggressive because it was trying to relay information, which was just so interesting about it.
So I think what you're trying to get at is overall, the spirit box, even though it was talking in somewhat of a gruff and aggressive manner, it was giving me information. And the information didn't 100% make sense at the time. And I will speak to that because, girl, you and I both know we speak to spirit. Spirit very rarely is like, oh, take a left at the next street, right? It's very cryptic, and it has this wonderful way of talking without talking and making you read into everything, which is just dandy. Love it. But the reason I bring that up is because these are not happy, wonderful things that I'm wanting to talk to. These are very dark things, but they're trying to give me information, but it's like they are bound and can only give me certain clues.
Gotcha. Well, that speaks of the creature you saw bound.
Yeah.
And
creatures, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, there were multiple of them. So at this point, the thing up on the corner starts to get a little antsy. And I shut down the spirit box and I said, we're stopping. And at this point, I basically blast a little light at it. And instead of hearing like a shriek or instead of any negative reaction like I would normally get, it almost felt like it went, oh.
Huh.
Which is very weird. Again, this is a dark entity. We normally aren't friends. When I shine light at it, they normally don't like it. So at this point, you're confused. I'm starting to understand what's happening, but I'm still a little confused. And Tim at this point is just, I don't know, you were kind of out of your mind, annoyed, because they were making so much noise down the hall.
They were not respecting the process at all.
Right. And the director was getting a little upset as well because they were making so much noise that he couldn't record what we were recording in that room. So basically, we all come back out into the living space again. And at this point, everyone disperses. Like, everyone kind of goes off in different directions. And I'm basically just left standing in the middle of the room by myself, which is rare, to be honest, right? Like, people are off eating, people are off talking, everyone went to all four corners.
It's kind of, we took an impromptu break, I guess.
Yeah, but no one announced it. It was very odd.
Yeah.
And that's when the energy started getting very scattered. And that's when I saw that thing walk by the back window. And immediately the client couldn't wait to run out there and go look at what I saw.
Right.
Which was nice because now I'm alone in the house. It was at that moment.
I felt relief.
And all of a sudden, everything started to make sense. And it was when he left and everyone pretty much just left me alone, which, like I said, is very random and odd. Normally, people want to talk to me or you guys have me busy. And I'm just standing in the middle of the living room by myself and everything starts clicking. The book that the spirit box talked about, In Blood, this is a generational agreement. And he signed the book in blood because he was taking ownership of these dark entities and bound them to do his bidding.
So, to look at this semi-academically, I guess, would you say we were dealing with a warlock, a dark warlock, or certainly a dark practitioner of some sort?
Absolutely a dark practitioner. And everything started to make sense. It was like one of those moments, in the movie towards the end where, the main character, all of a sudden the light bulb turns on and all the math starts mathing. That's the moment that I had. And here I'm just standing like a dummy in the middle of the room, all by myself. And everything starts to make sense. And it was like when that light bulb moment happened for me, and like I said, everyone's just wandering around doing all this stuff. It was like no one even realized I'm just standing in the middle of the room with no shoes on, just staring at a wall. All of the dark entities around the house basically start nodding and begging me to release them. Okay, let me break this down for y'all, okay? Dark entities we're not normally friends. Sometimes we have a respectful encounter where I can say, I need you to move on. This person no longer wants you. It's not good for them. Move on. But I've never had dark entities beg me to be released before. I mean, you want to talk about weird. This is one of those really weird moments for me. And so I'm sitting in my mind thinking, okay, well, how do I even make this happen? And so all of a sudden I call for everyone and it was weird. It was like the whole energy shifted from we're going to keep going and going and going to all of a sudden everyone wanted to wrap up and like, let's get going.
And I wanted to check out the basement still, the underground tunnels. That was one of the main things that I wanted to do, was to go in there.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And you never got a chance.
Just stuck in the same room when I like mentioned it a few times, but it never went anywhere really.
No. And so at this point, the director's basically like, okay, well, what do you need to do to wrap up? So at this point, basically, the director asked, okay, well, what else do we need to do? And I said, well, normally I do a clearing, and that's like how we end things. And he goes, great, what do we need to do that? And I kind of look at the client with this look like, is this something you even want to do? And he kind of gives me this little half nod.
Yeah.
At this point. And so, you know, again, I'm now realizing this dark practitioner,
right,
has called these beings and bound them by a blood oath to do his dark bidding, meaning he has control over the dark entities. The dark entities do not have control over him. Okay? Right. So dark practitioner is someone who knowingly is working with dark entities. But this is even a step further, because this isn't someone who's like, oh, we're working in tandem. They give me something, I give them something. He has bound them to the point where they're begging a light worker to set them free. They don't want to be there. I mean, this is weird upon weird, right? So, yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here in my head and I'm thinking, what kind of clearing am I going to do? You know, like, I don't... Okay.
What about the sage?
Cool. Like, and he gives me this half nod. So basically we line up and it's he and I facing each other, and the camera people are getting in position, and I've got some sage that I'm starting to light, and the weird thing is it wouldn't light.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then he keeps saying, well, you can't have it burn too much because all the fire alarms will go off. And so I had the whole rest of all of you go and open all the doors and windows. And I said, well, the doors and windows need to be open anyway, because what am I going to do? Burn some sage and have a whole bunch of dark things running around in a circle? That's, if you guys don't know, number one, if you're going to burn sage, open a window, please, or a door, or all of them, so that things can get out. Otherwise, they just run in circles.
And it's, you just lit sage.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm trying to light the sage. It's like my 4th or 5th attempt. It finally flamages a little and then pretty much just peters out. And I look at him and he is looking at me with a look of like disgust and revolt at this point, like, because the cameras can't see his face at this moment. And I whispered to him and I said, you know, this doesn't work unless you want it to, right? And I'm staring straight in his orbital sockets. And he looks at me with a smirk and says, just make it look good for the cameras.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I'm done. This is going to be a no energy. So, I made it look like I zhuzhed some sage smoke on him. And I basically just put it out and walked away.
That's interesting you say that, because that night, I maybe we even talked about this in the car on the ride home, but I remember distinctly, it's like you were putting out a lot, or supposedly putting out a lot of effort, and the last time you did that, I felt it in my chest, so did Henry. Mm-hmm. It was like a concussion blast, and this time it was nothing. Pew, yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing.
Okay.
And it was odd, too, because not only the client, but the people who were with the client and the TV crew, who could have cared less about what was going on other than they got their shot, they couldn't wait to get out.
Yeah, suddenly they were in a rush.
All of a sudden, everyone had to go immediately. And I'm like, great, okay. And it was the weirdest, most anticlimactic end to any investigation we've ever done.
Right.
Because normally there's that beautiful clearing at the end and everything feels brighter and wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. So immediately the client and the crew basically just start moving stuff out to the cars. Like, I mean, you didn't have to ask them twice. They couldn't wait to be gone.
Well, there was that short break where you were staring at the wall and half the equipment was outside already. It was staged outside.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
And so I basically decided while the client was outside to do one light blast, and I asked for intercessory prayer, basically, whereas I ask God, Spirit, Divine, Creator, Universe, whatever you want to call it, for divine intervention for these beings, if they can be released to go on their merry little way, because they were suffering. Like, I felt bad for the dark entities, y'all, okay?
That's saying something.
This is not normal. And so I basically did my prayer and a light blast and asked, like, can they please be released? Whatever this bond is, let it be broken, please, if it's allowed. And then I'm done. And then all of a sudden I'm packed up in the van and...
Yeah. And it was... the aftermath, the way I remember you describing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like they went out and they just kind of orbited the house outside, like at a pretty wide distance. Am I wrong about that, or am I thinking of something else?
I don't remember that. To be honest, once we left and I got in the car with you, I mean, it was also like 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But you and I were in the car, and it was almost like you and I were so confused about what had happened the entire day.
That's what happened with Sage and I too, because Sage was staying with me, so we hadn't really talked at all. We hadn't told each other any of this information while we were inside the house, because one, there's cameras on you, two, kind of rude to shit talk the client at his place.
Well, and you also had mics on you as well.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about any of this beforehand or immediately after. It wasn't until
we were actually able to talk about it in your car.
Yeah, and we didn't tell JJ or Tim what we felt until the next few days after, and it started making so much more sense when we were together, especially in my house. That's when I told Sage, this dude's weird. I didn't get a good vibe from him. I didn't see anything paranormal happen. I just got a terrible vibe from this dude. That's what.
Well, what I find interesting, and correct me if anyone feels differently, but it seems like individually, since we all didn't get to talk to each other about what we were exactly feeling right off the bat during the investigation, it seems like we were all picking up that it wasn't the house, but it was him that was actually having a lot of the energetic problem.
Yeah, it was the first time that there was nothing directly tied to the land. It was tied to him.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a sound assessment.
Well, and...
Alex, do you agree? Is that kind of what you had that read?
Very skeptical. I have never seen a ghost or a spirit or nothing like that. And this house wasn't giving off any... It was just a house. That's the most I can say. It was just a house. There wasn't any bad energy in the house.
It's a house with a monkey.
It's a house, yeah. The monkey was
fine
too.
Blue monkey.
Nothing was wrong with the monkey. Nothing was wrong with the house. It felt fine. It felt normal. There wasn't any chills in my body, going up and down, except when, I was getting creepily looked at. But yeah, the only thing I didn't like about the house was him.
Well, and I think that's the overall thing. So towards the end, as basically everyone's getting packed up, right? And I do my final little, okay, the owners should thank me because they got a little bit of an energy clearing, if they will. So we leave and we go outside. And there was a moment where I got the client oddly by himself for 30 seconds. And I basically asked him point blank, did you sign your name in blood in the book? And he sneered at me and said, don't bleep with the book. It's mine.
Wow.
What?
Okay. So at this point, now I'm either further confused, because this has just been one of those nights of like unprecedented things that have happened over and over and over again. It's 3:30 in the morning. As we go to back out, it's a straight shot to back out. Okay, Tim, I'm sorry in advance, but I need to tell it.
There's a point to this.
Okay, you literally just reverse straight, and then you basically make an L curve, right? And then you leave. And Tim is backing out straight and somehow manages to hit the side of the building.
What?
Yeah, I scraped the side of the building. It's damaged my car more than damaged the house.
The house was pretty fine. His bumper was not. I mean, it was a good jolt. I mean, you know, we're reversing. We're not going super fast. But here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. Remember, my final prayer was to jog loose these things from him. And then Tim hits the house on the way out.
Driving straight back, mind you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a straight shot up until you hit the corner of the house. And I shouldn't have hit the house at all.
There was almost no way Tim could have hit the side of the house that he hit. It made no sense. I was watching his hands on the wheel. I've been in his car many, many times. It doesn't veer to a different side. Like, he was using all the mirrors.
It was radical, too. It was a radical shift. It's like, it looked probably from the outside like I turned into the house. I didn't.
No.
My wheel was straight, and I got guided into the house somehow.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, because here I'm like praying for these things to get loosed, and then Tim ends up hitting the house on the way out. Sorry.
The poor house. It didn't need that much more. It already had that thing living in it.
Well, I mean,
That person.
I feel like symbolically wise, it was jarring it loose, if you get it. It was like our final farewell.
Right. Here, have some van.
So Tim and I are commuting together, right? It's 3:30 in the morning. We're on these crazy, dark, lonely roads in the middle of nowhere. I'm literally waiting for, a werewolf or boogeyman to jump out at any point, because it's very
come along.
pretty much like everything was on the table is what I'm saying, like where we were. You two girls had commuted with each other. So we're not on the phone with each other because we were meeting up the next day. Normally we do a debrief that night.
Yeah.
But we didn't. For whatever reason, everyone had to leave immediately because the client all of a sudden freaked out, and it was very strange. And he was like, everyone's got to go.
Yeah.
So Tim and I are in the car, and we're trying to talk about what happened, and we're stuttering all over, and we're kind of giggling about certain things because to be honest, excuse my language in advance, it was a shit show. Okay.
Perfectly put.
The whole day was absolutely absurd. And so we were kind of laughing up the absurdities. Meanwhile, you two girls are driving home, and you're just sitting there going like, what in the bleep did we just witness?
Yeah.
And so we're not talking, right? Until the next day. Mm-mm. So the next day we all meet up together, and you two girls walk in, and your vibe immediately has me freaked out. Because I'm thinking, oh my God, like, did something bad happen, And Tim, we were in pretty good spirits until we see you two. And immediately you two start telling me your sides of the story of what this guy was doing to you the entire time, how he was sidebarring, the things he was telling Alex. Just your general vibe about it was, he weirded me out, it creeped me out, like, I'm not okay with it. So Tim hears part of this, and Tim just basically walks outside for a moment. We don't know what he's doing. He's on the phone. And there were other people involved that day too. So I just thought he was taking a phone call. And Tim walks back in the house, and you girls were on the couch, so you couldn't see. But I saw him walk in, and his demeanor, like, he is pissed. I mean, mad Tim. And I've only seen Tim mad once before. So, like, I know the look, and it's pretty severe. And I look at him basically and give him a look like, don't show the girls that. And he basically comes in. He apologizes profusely to all of us. I'm sorry we were put in that position. The whole thing. I'm looking at him, and he's basically giving me this look like, I'll tell you later. Well, come to find out, that he ends up finding out, you had ended up calling the film person about the client because of the weird behavior towards the girls, and ended up finding out that on things that had, because this site was basically a film site. So the client lived there, but basically rented it out to different film companies in order to shoot there.
Different productions shot there, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know the terminology. Obviously, I'm not in the biz.
It's okay.
And Tim ends up finding out that apparently this guy was notorious for doing this.
But yeah, every pretty girl on every set that was there was harassed by this guy.
Not directly harassed in a way that you could take him to court, but basically followed around, stared at creepily, and just inappropriate to the point where the director was like, hey, you can't hang out on these shoots. So in essence, the director started to understand the only reason this guy is allowing these film shootings to happen is because he wants to look at the pretty girls, actresses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tim doesn't tell all of us that. He basically gives me this look like, I'll tell you later. But he is mad because he feels he should have been warned in advance, being that he ended up with an all-female team. You know, I'm one thing. I can handle my own, right? Like, I've been on this planet long enough.
Like I said, I'm a twig, so I can't really, unless I have like a weapon, I can't really self-defend. And even then, I don't think I would be very good with it. So
he would never physically do anything.
No, he didn't physically do anything. It's just what a creep does. It's what a creep does. Stalker, creep, a weirdo, you know, commenting, you know, on your Instagram, hey, DMing you after you post your picture, hey, oh my god, you're so pretty, and you're just like, who the fuck are you? A random ass dude, don't need you here, blocked. And it was really unprofessional, and it kind of made it feel like I couldn't do certain things because I had to keep my guard up more and on edge. I couldn't, you know, actually like ask questions I want to because I didn't want to talk to him, and he's the client, so I kind of have to talk to him, but I don't want to, so I just don't. If that makes sense. It wasn't he wasn't professional whatsoever.
Yeah, it was
Tim is still mad.
I'm still mad, very upset by this whole thing.
A warning would have been nice.
Warning for me would have been nice. I mean, had
so
I known.
I could, you know, shut down easily, but, you know, you're dealing with people you don't know. You can't always just, you don't know what they're capable of. You can't just be rude to them straight to their face. You don't know what they're going to do.
Well, and the interesting part, you know, before you girls even came along, we had 3 different places that we could have investigated. Yeah. That the film crew was okay with coming to. The first place closed.
Yeah, that was surprising.
A week before.
Yeah.
A week before you girls ended up coming up for our first, you know, the day before.
Permanently closed?
Permanently closed. So they had given us the okay to investigate there. A week before, when Tim was calling to set up, because it would have been, you know, it was a retail location, and it would have been nice. They closed. Tim calls to confirm, and they said, I'm so sorry. It's basically in probate at this point. Like, there's no one to contact at all. Okay, fine. That place is out. Let's move to the second place. The second place had given us permission, and then as Tim calls, all of a sudden permission is revoked.
Yeah.
Because they've extended their hours.
Yeah. That was at the last second. We've extended our hours. I'm sorry. We're going to be open at that time. You're? Really?
Yeah, in that town too, because like that's a like 1-horse town.
Be open at 12 to 3 a.m.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
So we were left with only this place.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And, you know, that's where I go into, okay, this obviously had to happen. If we're going to start you all in this team, let's throw you into the deep end with no waiters on.
No water wings. Swim.
I mean, interesting story. Extremely weird stuff for me. Obviously, good experience for all of us all the way around. Just to have had it happen.
I suppose so. Like, in the grand picture, I could see where you saying that makes sense. I don't like it when my team is exposed to this type of thing, from a client especially. But barring that, we did have some experiences, and we did capture it on tape and film.
We did. And hey,
that's kind of the name of the game.
For me to be in a situation where I'm more concerned about the human than I am the spirits, very odd. Very odd.
To say the least. Any final thoughts on that? Alex, you want to drop a few F-bombs?
Alex is still seething.
Yeah, my final words are, the client's a creep. That's the only thing I got out of it. The place is fine. The monkey is fine. Free the monkey.
Free the blue monkey, hashtag.
Free the monkey. Let him live. Send him to the jungle. That's my final statement.
Oh my god.
At this point, I don't think I could top anything after that. I think that needs to be the end of the novel. I think that's like the writer's signature in the book.
So if you can take anything out of this, please let the monkey free.
Set the blue monkey free.
Hashtag.
Ladies, thank you so much for helping me share this story with everyone. Ladies and gentlemen out in podcast world, my apologies for not getting this out on time. We did have some technical issues that kind of made it impossible to do part 2. So here we are, doing it for you again.
Live.
Yeah, we're all in the same room on this. This is pretty cool. Yeah. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for helping me tell this story.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. It was really fun.
I loved it, and we have a amazing crew. And I don't think it's all the time that you get to actually say you like to work with the people that you're going to be around. So, I feel very blessed to know all of you. So, yeah.
And I consider all of you part of my extended family. And I absolutely love and adore all of you. And you know that I mean that. And I think, if anything, this weird starting story gave us an amazing launch point for our friendship and a really, really cohesive and loving team. So I love you all.
We love you too, JJ.
Yes.
And I couldn't have said it better myself. I am beyond proud of this team. We have the best people for this type of work on this team. So don't forget to look us up. S.C.A.R.I. Paranormal Investigations. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Paranormal Insight. My name is Tim Sedano. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching and listening. Please click the subscribe button and activate notifications for future episodes and other content. On Spotify, please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram under paranormal.insight.podcast